It's me again, Mac, and we're back with another episode of Learning Lane Swaps. I'm really trying to pump these videos out quickly, one after another. I'm going to try and get a bunch done for the playoff series that we've been seeing. Hopefully, there'll be some good lane swaps over in Korea when they come out. They're always super good at those. But we're going to be looking at the game three. Was it game three? Yes, game three of the grand final between G2 and Origin. And this was a great match and a great series. It was so much fun to watch. The series was just, oh god, the mid lane play from Perkz was beautiful, and this game he just goes off on Zed, and in game one he goes off on the blank, and yeah, it's a great series. Game four he kind of goes off on Zed again after getting pooped on in the early game, but anyway, I won't go any further into that. This game we are going to start off talking about drafts again. As always, we need to look at the compositions before we start talking about who wants to lane swap, because that is the main factor in determining it. This game, the draft, I don't normally talk about drafts in these videos in too much depth, but this draft was not great. The super scaling comp from Origin already got rolled over in game one, and picking Azir and Ezreal is dodgy, especially when you haven't banned out Perkz' Zed. Picking Azir into Zed, it's a really nasty counter matchup, and Perkz has already shown that he is fantastic on Assassins. The other thing about this is the Ezreal Braum pick. Ezreal Braum is such a weak lane. Braum is good into Sivir, but Sivir, like the double range matchup and the fact that Ezreal is going to be building tier in the early game means that you're just super weak. And this is your strong bot lane. Like Zven and Mithy are one of the better bot lanes around, definitely in Europe, potentially up there in the world. I mean, they got to the world semi-finals, so you've got to give them a hell of a lot of credit for that. I think they're one of the main reasons that Origin got there. So maybe don't put super weak champions on them, or super weak early game champions, or at least have some early game element. This team is just all about scaling, and it's going to go horribly wrong. G2 sees this and goes, right, we're going to play for the early game, sweet. So let's see how you do that in a lane swap scenario. This is a really interesting game, lane swap wise, and obviously, with the Ezreal, we're seeing a lot of Ezreal. We saw Nasus last video. These really, really exemplify or make it clear who is looking for lane swaps. Because with Ezreal, you're almost always looking to lane swap because you want to get out of that really dodgy early game trough that you have when you get tier, and it allows you to pick up a cull and just scale and scale and scale and scale until you have your 3 core items completed and your Muramana is done. So Origin is going to look for the invade so that they can secure the lane swap. This is a really interesting series of events. At the beginning, the first 5 minutes of this game are nice to watch. So Origin goes in for the deep wards to try and find out where G2 are headed. And G2, after checking into the bot lane, seeing if anyone's there, the bot lane starts recalling. They see all these people invading in the top side, and they know, so the bot lane comes up here so that they can match the Origin bot lane, because as we talked about last game or last video, the bot lane will probably be on this side because they'll be wanting to take a camp, right? So G2 kind of disrespects it. Yes, it's okay to go to the top lane, but normally you'd stay in your base here. And they run over a bunch of wards. Origin sees them, and they get, instead of swapping out and trying to go for just, reversing the matchups and actually going for a lane swap, they could have walked away. They'd have lost a camp. They'd have got to the bot lane in okay-ish timing. They try and go for a kill. They try and burn a summoner to get a lane advantage. That would allow them to push the lane and then potentially swap there. So I see what they're going for, but it doesn't turn out. Soaz does have to burn his TP because they stay so late, and Amazing gets to start on the top side, and that's really important. But G2 get the matchup they want. They get the 2v2, which is just fine. They get Echo into Maokai, which is great. Standard lanes is exactly what they want in this scenario, and they don't even get to lane late. So it's looking great for G2 at the beginning because, as I said, you want to punish this Ezreal. And the rest of this is going to be about how Origin gets that Ezreal out, or tries to, and how G2 manages to punish. The other thing we have to talk about compositionally, which I forgot to mention as of yet, is that the draft. Another reason why this draft is really not favourable for Origin, let's put it that way, let me just pause it because something important's about to happen, is that pretty much whichever way they go, right? So they've got bad lane matchups. Echo into Maokai is great, and the 2v2 we've already discussed is great, and they've also got a losing mid lane. So they've got 3 losing lanes, first of all. That's not something you want to do, especially with a scaling comp. Like, when you pick scaling, you want to get to the late game, so you need to have strong people to get you there. You're just going to get rolled over at this point. But so the normal way that as we've discussed, of getting that to the late game with the Ezreal is by lane swapping. But when you look at G2's lineup, they are all champions which are fantastic in the lane swap. Sivir is really good with Ricochet and her Boomerang Blade at pushing down waves. Bard is great for pushing down waves, much better than Braum. Graves has insane turret pushing potential if you do want to call in your jungler. And Echo also has really, really nice push potential with his Time Winder and the fact that he has like an auto attack reset thing on his E. So they're going to push much, much quicker in a 3v3 or 3v0 or 4v0 scenario than Origin. So pretty much you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a really dodgy draft. So let's see how Origin managed to at least stay in the early game for a little bit of this. As we talked about already, Amazing started in the top side, so Trick makes the right call and invades into the bottom side, but they don't see this gank coming. Origin knows that this bottom lane is going to get snowballed over, and Amazing comes in with a really nice play and a lovely flash back over that wall to equalize this lane up a bit and go, hey, we're going to lose this matchup, let's pressure it. Normally what you see teams doing is playing around their strong side of the matchups. Let me put my phone on silent, apologies for that. Normally you see teams playing around their strong matchups, but in this case they're trying to get the weak one into a lane swap. They're trying to swap away. So yeah, Amazing comes in from the backside, pops the stun onto Braum, Q's over the wall, and Hybrid's done. That flash is lovely. It just looks so nice, him queuing over an instant flashback. And the other thing you've got to notice is that the exhaust and the flash down for Power of Evil, and that's real big in a counter matchup considering Perkz didn't have to burn anything. Trick was able to come in from the bottom side and assist, so keep that in mind for what we're going to see next. Now, the Origin bot lane is recalling. Remember that Origin wants to get out of this lane swap, so they want to try and get lane pressure somehow on these lanes, and that gank is a really good way of doing it. They want to get lane pressure on these lanes so that, as we talked about before, if you get a tempo advantage, if you manage to push those waves into the towers, you can then swap your lanes. Soaz has got his TP down, so it's going to have to be more or less perfect. You're going to have pressure in both waves. But as we're about to see, they end up getting it. Sivir pushes into the top tower and recalls. Kikis also recalls, and Origin are able to push out these waves as quickly as possible. Ezreal, in the early stages of the game, will push just as quick as everyone else. It's just that when he gets his tier, it starts to get much, much slower. So he manages to push this wave in all the way to the tower, despite Hybrid. Like you can see, Hybrid here wants to slow this down as much as possible, if he can at all, which he can't really. He's a bard. He could tank this wave, but it would be so much HP. Does he tank this wave? Yeah, he's tanking it right now, I think, to try and stop it short of the turret so that they can push it back. But this already gives Origin time to recall. Soaz has managed to do the same thing because of Kikis' recall. Now your lanes can swap. You can get out of this horrible matchup and start just scaling into the late game comfortably. Cool. So, next thing we got to talk about, Sven, you didn't see it, but he actually stopped in base to wait around for his cull. You want a cull on Ezreal. It's a nice back point. He was like, a few gold off the cull, and he just wanted to wait that extra bit longer to pick it up. But it's going to play into this whole thing with the tempo. So Kikis is pushing in. They still haven't realized that this is a lane swap yet, that Origin has pushed out, because the top lane, as you can see, is freezing at the tower. They're thinking, okay, their lane's going to come back, let's freeze this, and then we can push a big wave into their tower, and maybe we can dive them, maybe we can rotate up. Or you just generally want to freeze to deny minions from the other team, right, as we talked about already. And Kikis is pushing into the tower. This means they don't know that Origin's lane swapping yet. Probably should have realized this is what's going to happen. If you see a free recall like that on Ezreal, assume that they're going to swap. So nice play from Origin. Not the best read from G2. And Kikis is going to get ganked. He gets a nice parallel convergence out of it and a flash, so that's fine. It doesn't go too badly. But this whole time, G2 does see it, and now they're able to push in with the wave that they've frozen, because when you freeze waves, they get big, so they push in quickly. So if you do turn a freeze around, then the bigger the freeze you get, the quicker it's going to push in the end. But as we talked about before, Sven waited in base to get his tier and his cull, and then the gank went south or didn't pull off, so they lost that tempo advantage that they did have from pushing those waves in. And now they haven't got to the tower. So the blue side wave on the bottom lane has not reached the tower, which means you can't make this TP play from behind that you normally would. Soaz's TP is just about to come up. So this is really, really small timing windows. If the wave had got to that tower and Soaz's TP had come up, then you could have seen the play the other way around. But that's not what happens. You get this really tiny teleport window and G2 take it. And this is one of the reasons why G2 is so fun to watch, because they just pull the trigger all the time. Soaz just misses the portal there, or the magical journey, which would have been hilarious. And the counter matchup is not going well anymore. Love this flash, but yeah. Again, we start to question this draft because you're losing in a lane swap, you're losing in standard lanes, all three of your lanes are losing, you're playing a late game scaling comp into G2, one of the most aggressive teams in the league with the lowest average game time, and you're putting Power of Evil, who's not been that great this season. I hate to say it. I was a big Power fan before, not so much anymore. He's starting to show a bit of a climb again in terms of his performance, but you're putting him against Perkz, who has been the best mid laner this split, in my opinion. Like, he's right up there next to Febby, and yeah, you're putting him in a really rough counter matchup against that Zed. So the tower goes down and G2 gets a big tempo advantage because of the teleport play they managed to make, and because that wave in the bot lane wasn't pushed in properly, it died and they ended up having to put another wave into it. So G2 makes the appropriate call, as we've seen before, gets a Rift Herald. Perkz gets caught recalling in a dodgy place here, but poor Power of Evil. It's not his day, man. It's really not his day in this series. It doesn't go too well for him, and he's going to end up dying here. Perkz gets the assist to add insult to injury. It's not fun for him. So let's skip over this play quickly, and we are back with G2 in the bottom lane. They're exerting their pressure now. They're going to push out this wave, and we're going to see how they, again, being G2, use this to create these really big gank opportunities, these small tempo bursts that they get. Because they got those towers down, because they got the Rift Herald, they managed to push all these waves in, and let's see how they use it. So Kikis pushes a wave into Soaz and immediately starts moving. This is something that Kikis did really well. He had a fantastic series. And the same thing, Emperor and Hybrid push in a lane and immediately start running. You can see them already. I mean, they're not needed here, but this is how you can do this in your games, right? You push in one wave and you just go, because you have one wave, and because it's long lanes, because the outer towers are down, you have a lot of time to be able to waste here. Now, it doesn't go super well. Well, it does go well. I mean, Power of Evil's 0-3, Perkz gets another kill onto him, and so as we've talked about before, rotating into the mid lane is, when you have a tempo advantage, when you've got the outer towers down, although they don't have the bottom lane outer tower down, actually, my mistake, they've only got one, but if you have a small tempo advantage, this is what you want to be doing. And they try and get, the idea is to try and kill the mid laner and take the mid tower down with the Graves, with the Sivir, with the Bard, with the awesome zoning ulti, the catch, everything. It's a really nice comp for taking down towers, especially when you have a Rift Herald buff, okay? So, yeah, this is poor Power of Evil, man. It's really rough for him in this matchup. Unfortunately, he didn't dodge that last Shuriken. Perkz actually didn't need to take that last shadow there. He really didn't. He probably would have survived if he didn't take the shadow back there. But as you're seeing in the little, whatever you call it, window in the bottom left, the Origin bot lane, while this was happening, Zven carried on pushing out the bot lane all the way into the tower, and that means the Emperor has to go and respond to it. And so amazing, and Braum can take a dragon. And this is something that G2 potentially could have done better in this series. As we've talked about before, if you're playing against a really strong late game scaling team, then you want to get those early dragons, especially on a team that can kite into you, right? Look at the lineup with the Ezreal, the Azir, the Maokai, the Braum. They are incredible at kiting teams, and you want to make them check into you. You want to make them come into you and have to fight you so that you can actually fight them, because otherwise you're just going to run into them and they're going to wreck you. It's not what happens in this game because Origin falls so far behind. Perkz gets such a big advantage, and now this play this is a misplay from Sven, unfortunately. You have like Maokai's in the mid lane, so you have pressure on the top lane. Kikis is going to push the wave down there, and he's going to be able to teleport in. Wave's going to go into the tower, or at least be near the tower, so you've got no threat of you losing your tower on the top lane. So you should know that G2 is looking to make a play here, right? Because Kikis is pushing in that tower, and because the Maokai is in the mid lane. And Sven has no vision on the bottom side. He doesn't have his jungler nearby. His mid laner is coming out of base. His support is in the mid lane as well. And he's an Ezreal with Manamune sat at his tower against Sivir Bard. It's not going to go well. This was the most obvious play that G2 could have made in terms of you're not going to siege into an Azir mid because Azir is great at holding lanes. Maokai's in the mid lane at the moment as well. So the bottom lane outer turret is what you want. Especially because looking at this composition, there goes Kikis' TP, again amazing under the tower. Looking at this composition, what you want to do with this Zed is get into a 1-3-1, right? Especially seeing as he's now ahead in the mid lane, you want to get this Zed into matchups where no one can answer him. You want to split them up, stop the Azir from being able to just hold down the mid lane and AFK farm all day, and you want to be pressuring these side lanes as much as possible. So taking the outer towers is definitely G2's objective, and you'll see that immediately when they get these towers down, they start moving into a 1-3-1. Azir's in the top lane there, and that just shows how desperate Power of Evil is, because you don't want to send your Azir to the top lane. He needs to be in that mid lane, holding down waves, otherwise you lose all the value of that pick. That's what Azir is designed to do, is to just hold and be this crazy strong wave clear and disengage, etc. But he's just getting battered so hard by G2 right now and by Perkz that he's forced to go to the top lane, and that means that you get free reign to do whatever you want on the rest of the map. I mean, he's sat on components right now. He's got Amp Tome, 2 daggers, 2 Doran's rings, and boots. And Perkz is just about to complete his Yomu's Ghostblade, and he's already got another longsword. So, yeah, it's not great. So again, you move into this 1-3-1 split. Oh look, the bot lane's on the bottom side, or the marksman support duo is on the bottom side. They have no TP pressure up here. Let's take a Rift Herald. This is what you want to be doing to really snowball this game out of control as soon as possible, is taking everything. As soon as you see the AD carry on one side, you make a play for the other side. You split up the map, you make a play for the Azir, you push one wave into them, and then you rotate. And that's what G2 is really good at doing in this series. They're not the cleanest team, and they do make mistakes in this game. It ends up getting messy, and they get saved a lot in this series by these big pickup Baron steals by Trick. But this is why that they are the strongest European team, because they are so aggressive and so able to push these small timing windows. And they do it again here. Kikis pushes one wave into the bottom lane, and as soon as the wave goes in, he's gone. He is coming up to the mid lane. You've got the Bard ulti, you've got really nice siege, you have a big advantage. The Azir has got absolutely nothing, and over the wall comes Kikis to make a play. So in this game, we've seen about another interesting early game start, and how to try to swap your bottom lane out of certain advantages. We've seen how to use timing windows to get TPs, and we've seen how to use those small tempo advantages to snowball early games and to make big kills and get into those win conditions you want. Remember, lane swaps are great if you're running a 1-3-1 team, especially if you have double teleports. That's why you're seeing so much Lissandra in the meta right now, that if you can break open the map that early, and with these champions that have really strong mid-game spikes and really nice, few lane counters so they can be blind picked, and also the ability to take TP, Kikis, whoever stays there, whatever, we'll gloss over that. He had a fantastic series apart from that. Then you can, moving back to the other point, then you can really, really snowball these matchups and just take over the entire map, get pressure on all 3 lanes, and you can cut this scaling comp to ribbons before it ever has a chance to fight back. So that's going to be all for me from this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please do look out for more. And as always, I would love to hear your feedback in the comment section on this. Please do like and subscribe, and check out my other videos if you are interested and if you've enjoyed this. Thanks very much. You guys take care of yourselves.